Welcome to solverfy.
Walker Incorporation is considering purchasing new equipment that will automate production and reduce labor costs. And they're making the following estimates to the new machinery and assume that the depreciation is calculated on a straight line basis for tax purposes. Assume all cash flows occur at year end except for initial investment amounts. The first question wants us to calculate the net present value, the payback period, discounted payback period, and the internal rate of return. And we're to compare and contrast the capital budgeting method in requirement 1. So let's start with the first question. Now, the net present value is the computation of the present value of the cash inflows over the present value of the cash outflows. That's what the net present value is. So we're going to start with the net present value. That's the first thing we'll to calculate. So for this, we're going to have our particulars. Um, we're going to have particulars. We're going to have the time. We're going to have the present value factor. We're going to have the present value, the amount over here. Um, so this is what the table should look like, and yeah, it should look like this. So for the particulars, we're going to have the present value of the cash inflows. And the present value of cash outflows. And then net present value. Now, the period is 1 to 5, right? Because it's 5 years. So for the present value of for the present value factor over here, we work it as 8% of 5 minus 1, 0 and 0. And when you work it out, you have 3.9927, and it will be 1 over here. And to find the amount, it will basically be 36,000 and 120,000. Now the present value would be the present value factor of the present value of cash inflow multiplied by the amount of the present value of cash inflows. Now when you multiply that together, you get 137,737.56. And for the second one, we'll get 120,000 because 1 times 120 is 120. So the total present value would be, we're going to be subtracting the cash inflows minus the cash outflow, and then the net present value would be 23,737.56. So that is our answer. Now moving on to the next part, which is the payback period. For the payback period, we need the annual after tax cash inflow. So Before I do the payback period, I will calculate the annual after tax cash flow. So we have the particulars and the amount. The first one is the annual cash flow from operations, and this is 40,000. Then we subtract the income tax payments, and this is 25% of the annual cash flow. So when you work out 25%, you get $10,000. And then what we get is the annual after tax cash flows. And this is 30,000. So now we add the annual depreciation on equipment. And this is basically 120,000 divided by 5 because it's 5 years, right? So when you divide 120,000 by 5, you're going to get 24,000. And then you subtract that, and then what you get is the income tax cash savings of 6,000. And then the total annual after tax cash flow would be you adding this and this together. So that would be $36,000. So now that we have this, we can now calculate the payback period. Now the payback period is equal to the initial investment divided by the annual after tax cash flow. So now this will be equals to the initial investment was 120,000, and looking at the annual after tax cash flow is 36,000. So this is equals to 3 years. So the payback period is 3 years. Now we can move on to the next part of the question, which is the discounted payback period. So the discounted payback period is equal to A plus B divided by C. A is the last period with negative discounted cash flow. This is the absolute value of discounted communicating cash flow at the end of the period, and C is discounted cash flow during the period. So looking at this, A, which is the last period with negative discounted cash flow, would be 4 years, plus B, which is the absolute value, is $778, and C would be 24,516. So this is basically 4 plus 0.03, which is 4.03 years. So this is what the discounted payback period is. Now, if you want to Now the next question is the internal rate of revenue, or IRR. I'm sorry, internal rate of return. So for this, we're gonna have the period and the amount. So we have period 0 to 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for 0 period, it's going to be 120 minus 120,000. For one period, it's 36,000. Second period, 36,000. Third period, 36,000. Fourth period, 36,000. And now to find the internal rate of return, you basically be for all of this, from this to this, and then this will give you 15.24%, and that will be the internal rate of return. Now, moving on to the second part of the question, it says compare and contrast the capital budgeting methods in requirement one. Now, the net present value method and the internal rate of revenues are and the internal rate of return, I'm sorry, they are both discounted cash flow technique. And the cash outflows and inflows are adjusted with the present value factors to get discounted cash flow techniques. Now, the net present value method, the excess of the present value of cash flow over the cash outflow is the surplus. So, cash inflow minus outflow is equal to surplus for the net present value method. Now, the internal rate of revenue or return on the other side or measures the effective return on investments. So this is the difference. Now, the non-discounted and the discounted payback period are computed, and these techniques helps in determining the period in which the investments made is recovered. Now, the payback period considers the cash inflows, which recovers the initial investment, but the discounted payback period considers the discounted cash inflows, which recovers the initial investment. So the difference is that the payback period just considers the cash inflows, but the discounted cash inflows, I'm sorry, the discounted payback period, the difference is that it considers the discounted cash inflows instead of the cash inflows for the payback period. Now, it's important that we analyze the investment decision of the government, the environment in the economy. So, this proposal has the causal payback period and it to be accepted.